Hey guys, welcome back to We Watched the Movie. I am Mike. Today we are talking A Quiet Place, Day 1. Spoiler free. I will talk spoilers at the very end of the video, but I'll give plenty of warning before I go into any of that stuff, so no worries there, just in case you haven't seen the movie yet. And also, before I get started, reminder tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, early start time. Jay and I are both live talking movie news. There's some Halloween movie news. We could talk about this. We could talk about whatever you guys want to for a few hours. Come and hang and let's party together tonight. But apart from that, A Quiet Place Day 1, I realized something right off the bat. And the first thing that I realized was these monsters. It was good enough for the first movie for sure. A little too CGI'd, sure. They weren't the greatest things ever. These aliens weren't the greatest thing of all time, but they were enough. They were interesting enough. The whole idea that they could only see by hearing and all that was interesting enough. And the second movie came and went, and it was filmed really well, and it still managed to work. But this is definitely the end point. I'm not saying that the franchise can't go on past this, but I'm saying with these monsters as they currently are in their current state, as the way they look, the lore, their story, the assets about them, the things we know about them, it's just not scary anymore. And that's the biggest disappointment, I think, with A Quiet Place Day 1, because it's a summer blockbuster movie. You think a certain thing, you think at least a horror movie. This is far more of a dramatic, emotional pool of a movie than it is a horror or a summer blockbuster movie. And really, it could have worked as both. There's enough of the monster stuff in this for it to have worked as both. It's just that these creatures, we've seen them, this is the third movie we've seen them now, they just aren't interesting enough, and they're no longer scary. I mean, when they're on screen, it's a constant replay of set pieces of, oh my gosh, I'm really close to it, I gotta be quiet now, it's really close, I wonder if it'll get me or not. And just that constant interaction over and over again. It's just honestly played out at this point. And this movie had an opportunity to add some lore or to do something to make them more interesting, and it didn't. The best part of the movie is what they did do with that, which was, and you saw most of this, honestly, you saw the majority of it in the trailer, is when you mix in the setting of New York City with them. Now we get to see them show up on day one, which we saw, and to be honest with you, they did better in the last film with the little bit of prequel we had there. We get to see them arrive, but this time in New York City. And the setting of when there is a bunch of them together and they're like crawling up a building all together, it looks really cool. You can see it in the trailer though. And there's a cool thing that they do where when they're running through the city, it'll create almost a tornadic effect as far as like the sound goes and like the building shaking and stuff like that. So that was a cool thing that they added to it for sure. It literally felt like we're huddled down as a tornado blows by, because there's so many of them, they're so loud and they're such little fucking shits that that's how that feels. So that part was cool. So this movie has almost nothing to do story-wise with the other two films, other than a couple inconsequential details here and there, other than the aliens coming down and this being day one of their arrival. They're pretty much completely separate. It's an esoteric story in its own way for the most part. And, you know, that's fine, but the movie does feel like an expansion pack, and there's just not enough to this story-wise. This could have been an all-time great short. Remember The Punisher Dirty Laundry? I don't know if you guys saw that, but Thomas Shane came back to play the Punisher for just the short, and it's some of the best Punisher we've ever gotten on screen. You should YouTube that when you're done with this. Trust me, you'll thank me later. It kicks ass. It's R-rated. It's awesome. But this could have been something like that. The story is so thin here that, and it is emotional. It does get emotional by the end of the movie, and you're like, oh shit, you know, this might make me tear up a little bit. And it's beautiful and it's pretty what they did and all that stuff. Cathartic for the characters, the way that everything works out here, sure. But it takes so long to get to that point. And again, not really the movie that we signed up for sure. The first movie had emotion in it, but it was also entertaining, and it was also a horror movie, and it also had new dynamics in it we hadn't seen before. Now we're doing that. We're taking forever to get to it. We have far less characters to care about, and we've seen this stuff for 3 movies now. So it's just, that is not enough to really sustain. But yeah, sure, it's emotional by the end of the movie, but man, they play it the fuck out. There's a point in this movie, and those of you who've seen it know where it comes to the point where someone's doing a magic trick. And by that point, you're like, just go the fuck outside and scream. It is frustrating by the time you get to that point, and I just don't feel like it should be that way. And Lupita Nyong'o's character is great. She's strong. She's a good character. I like the plight. It's very interesting what they're doing with her for sure. But again, it's a very thin. You understand the concept almost as soon as the movie starts, and then they drag the concept out for an hour and a half. And it's not that they're doing it poorly, it's just unnecessary. This could have been the greatest 15-minute film of all time, honestly, but it really has no business stretching out for an entire movie in itself. The character played by Joseph Quinn is he does a great job acting, but the character's super fucking annoying. And one of the problems with the movie is like she's a great character, but it's like she's the only person in the movie with any goddamn sense whatsoever. Every single person she runs into is just a goddamn buffoon. And she's a pretty simple standard person who's like, this would be a smart thing to do. And you're like, yeah, but no one else is. And it's like it's kind of frustrating at some point. Like every person shows up and is a complete goddamn doofus. And she has to be like, actually, you should run away from the aliens. And they're like, oh, thanks, Lupita. Fuck me in the ass. And at one point with his character, like they're in a tight situation. It's like, all you have to do is be quiet. There's one fucking rule here, Jim. You just have to shut the fuck up. And every time he's like, oh, he keeps moaning and shit. He's like, oh, and you're like, stop it. Fucking just shut the fuck up. I would have smacked his ass 7 ways from Sunday. But yeah, just really simple shit. It's like, how do you fuck that up, Greg? Jesus Christ. Stop whining. I feel like Arnold's watching this movie. Stop whining. There's a tiny speckle of like alien to aliens in there where there's so many of them here. So I did enjoy that. I don't think they capitalized on it nearly enough, especially for how much of that was already shown off in the trailer for sure. And honestly, I feel like we've gotten to the point with the quiet part of it that it feels like an annoying gimmick more than an additive to the movies. Like in the first movie, it's like, oh, that's a cool idea or whatever. And by now we're just like kind of like every time a character's like, you're like, oh, fuck. I almost just wish that you guys would just go into a basement so that you could speak to each other so that we don't have to sit through watching you guys try to communicate silently, because it actually starts to get on your nerves a little bit. And also, this doesn't bother me because I did not want to watch these characters have to go through learning that they can't speak around the monsters again. So I was fine with this, but it is noticeable how the monsters show up and then 5 minutes later, everyone suddenly knows they're attracted to sound. It's just like, it's a little stretchy pants McGee to believe that everybody just figured that out so quickly. But again, I didn't mind it because I didn't want to watch them figure that part either, but it's noticeable. So yeah, and just one more time for the cheap seats, the end of the movie is just ridiculously drawn out emotionally. It just goes on fucking far too long. You know, it's definitely like, God, you're artsy. We know. Croissant! We understand you're artsy, but it goes on way too long. But at the end of the day, this franchise just desperately needs a monster overhaul if we want to keep going. They're just not interesting or scary enough anymore. It's lost its luster, abso-fucking-toodalutely. And it also just, it needs to decide whether it wants to be a summer blockbuster or if it wants to be an artsy croissant piece. So I just, at this point where we stand, I have very little interest in seeing another Quiet Place movie unless I see some new dynamics being added to it for sure. But that's just the way I feel about it. The movie for me is a 6 out of 10. Again, it's well filmed, made by the director of Pig with Nicolas Cage, not Russell Crowe, the possession movie. Come on, possess the pig! Not that one, but the one with Nicolas Cage in it. It's directed sweetly. It's directed well. It's acted well, although, you know, some of the characters are really annoying, like, guy. But that's just my feelings on it. Apparently a lot of people like it a lot more, so definitely check it out for yourself. Check it out for yourself too. It needs to know. But spoiler territory now, and for the rest of you who don't want to be spoiled, we'll see you guys tonight. There will be no spoilers there either, but there's not a whole lot of spoilers to talk about, but some story points I'll hone in on specifically now. I didn't talk about in the regular review. The whole point of this story is that her character has terminal cancer, and she's in a lot of pain. So she has these fentanyl patches that she takes that she needs because she's in a lot of pain. She's very close to death, and it's really messed with her psyche. And so when the end of the world happens, it's an interesting perspective to watch the end of the world happen from the point of view from someone who's unfortunately going to be passing soon anyway. And the way she handles that is, I just want to go get pizza. And that sounds silly, and you've probably seen a lot of people, if you were on Twitter or whatever, making jokes about pizza and the cat and stuff like that, because she has this cat that's with her, and that's kind of all she cares about, and she just spends everyone's running away from the danger. She's walking into the city towards it, because everyone's running to the water, because these helicopters are flying over saying, hey, they can't swim, which makes them pretty easy to beat, you would think. Really, you know, I mean, we know this, but I don't know. That's aside the point. But everyone's running away from danger, and they're getting in these boats, and they're getting carted off or whatever. And she's running into the city to get pizza. But the reason is because she had a really good relationship with her dad, and he was an amazing piano player, and he used to take her there to see shows. And then afterwards, they would get pizza together at this one specific pizza place. So there's a reason she's going. So yeah, is it Woody Harrelson and the Twinkie from Zombieland? Sure, but they put an emotional edge over top of it. And, you know, you do feel it at the end of the movie when she's sitting there and she's looking at pictures of her dad, and they finally find the place. And it is touching. It's moving, and, you know, it'll make you tear up a little bit. Just the relationship that she has there and what her character's going through. But the other dude just completely ruins it because he's just so Magoo the whole time, and he's just like, oh, I'm gonna do this for you, and he doesn't know her at all. She finds him walking through the street, just following her around like a sad puppy, because again, everyone else in this movie except for her is completely useless. Completely and utterly fucking useless except for her. She has common sense and literally no one else does. But he's just walking behind her. He's like, I don't want to die. So the whole idea is like, he's a guy who wants to live. She's a person who knows she's not going to, and how they walk through this world together. I get it. But his character came off as super annoying the entire time. And we have to go through these weird things where they go to the apartment and they read some poetry and they scream together when the thunder crashes. And it's just, and I should have said this in the main part of the review. I forgot to. It's not a bad movie. It's just very, very unentertaining. As its biggest problem for sure. And again, like with the cat, with having the cat and so few characters, like there was no tension. Like we all know the cat's not going to die. I can tell that this is the kind of movie that's not going to kill the cat. I don't want you to kill the cat. Don't get me wrong. But the whole point of it being there is to be like, oh man, let's put people on edge. We might kill this fucking cat. Everybody knows you're not going to fucking kill the cat, guys. We could tell by the way you were reading poetry in the first act, you're not going to kill the fucking cat. So it's not working. You know, it's not doing its job. And with either of them two, and in the end, she saves him by making a bunch of noise so that he can run and jump. And it's a tense scene or whatever, but the movie needed a lot more of him so that he can run and jump into the water, and the boat can pick him up or whatever and take him off into the future of the franchise. And then she survives that moment. But then at the end of the movie, it's just walking through the streets, listening to her dad's music on her little boombox, and then pulls the cord on it and lets it play, and immediately a scary boom boom pops behind her and gets her, you know. And even when the scary boom booms get people in this movie, like they got Alex Wolff's character, who he was really good in the movie, by the way, he was, but another just sort of dumb dude who goes out to fix the generator or whatever that's loud as fuck right in the open, like you knew he was gonna die. But he was really good in the movie. But what was I saying about him? Shit. Oh yeah, even when he gets, you know it's coming. You can see it coming from a mile away. They don't do the horror parts very good in this movie. They just don't. And when it pops out, it just goes, nah! And you see it, and then he gets tackled, and you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much unseen, unshown, undone in these movies that it worked for one movie, but it's not working anymore. It's just not, it's not pushing the needle forward, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I almost fell asleep several times in this movie. That's why the thumbnail says what the thumbnail says. But it was well made. It's just not exciting by any means, and we'll probably never need to rewatch this whatsoever. I love your fucking faces, and I hope you like this more than I did. Let me know down below. Please click like on this. Lick this fucking video. Please click like on this video. We'd appreciate it, and we'll see you guys tonight.